So in 2007, I started this blog. 2008, during the financial crisis, I was working for a financial firm, got laid off in that. And I sensed that the Lord was leading me to become a full-time blogger when we were making $100 a month from the blog. Okay. So a terrible idea in the natural, a terrible idea. And so I was really wrestling with that because I really sensed that this was God speaking to me to do this, and it made no sense. And I went to one particular, a financial mentor of mine, and he said, that's a terrible idea. You should never do it. And so back to Linda's point, like I had to get other counsel. I had to figure out who I was talking to, who would be hearing from the Lord, because he wasn't hearing from the Lord. In fact, he wasn't even a believer. And so he was seeing it through the natural lens, but I needed to get counsel from people who could see it through the spiritual lens. And when I did, and then when I felt that peace on the situation, and again, like all the pieces coming together, like I felt confident and we felt confident together moving out in that. And again, yet again, like we saw God move in such miraculous ways. I went from making $100 a month on that blog to making more than my day job in less than a year. Again, after we obeyed and did the thing that seems crazy, almost as crazy as whatever, feeding 5,000 with a few loaves and fishes, or marching around Jericho and then yelling real loud. It's like God seems to like to do these things, but we got to trust him and take those bold steps, when he calls us.
For sure. Let's go back to the tithing part, because my husband and I have always said, we just tithe and it just works out. Like it just does. Like even in the worst situations, we don't stop tithing. God always provides. More and more I've been reading and then listening to you guys, so it's coming up again, that it's not tithing 10% necessarily. It's tithing on what like you're expecting, even. Like you're giving the first of what's not even there. Like what is your take on tithing? And I know it's such a hard subject for people too.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot here. Do you want to start?
I mean, what's interesting about this is I have been hearing a lot more recently. Like I feel like it keeps coming up of, that is like the first fruits idea, right? Is that I think the Jewish culture did that, where they gave whatever was the first, like actual first fruits that would come up. And I was
expecting that more fruit would come.
Yes.
Right. And just they had all this and they gave some, but then we're going to give this first one and then we haven't gotten the rest of the stuff yet.
Right. So they don't know what's going to happen. They don't know if they're going to have enough. They don't know if they're going to have enough to sell or to, live on it themselves, however that worked out. But what I thought was interesting about that is now, since we don't have that first fruits, like actual, like coming from land or farming or whatever, I've heard that instead what they do is at the beginning of the year, they decide what they would like to see money come in, and they give based off of that, which I was like, this is a wild concept that is based out of the Jewish law. And when you look at the way God does things, like everything in the Torah, like the original law that God created. Of course, we don't have to live by that anymore. And he still blesses us and we can still receive salvation and all that stuff because Jesus came to fulfill the law. But everything that was there was set up for our benefit. Like there are things that were set up for us that would make our lives better and our lives easier. And I think that this could be one of them. I was even talking to my dad about it because, he was telling me some of these ideas and he's put some of it into practice. And he's like, I can't believe what's happening. And I said, I wonder if you could push that farther. I wonder if you could say, oh, I'm going to actually give more than, this first fruits idea. Could I give more, hoping and praying and asking God? Because there is just a law of sowing and reaping. Like that just is what it is. Like God set it as a law and he said it would always remain. As long as the earth remains, there will always be seed time and harvest. And so I don't know. I mean, I think this is fascinating. I like talking about it because I think it's really interesting because it's not something that we can we can't make it happen. Only God can make it happen. And I think that's what's exciting to me about it.
Yeah. I mean, what I would add to that is, again, we're not trying to sound like 80s, televangelists, and whatever that is, or whatever picture you have of that. But
right.
But there is something here because my two go-to chapters in the New Testament when it comes to giving are 2 Corinthians 8 and 9. And 2 Corinthians 9 is all about planting seeds and harvesting. And Paul is using it as a metaphor for giving. So he's talking about all these principles about giving and generosity and the harvest that comes. Mm-hmm. And it's like, He didn't have to do that. But that's such an easy concept for us to understand. And it's like when we think about it that way, it's like, oh, well, if you want to reap more, you plant more seeds. Like it's really elementary and very simple, but yet so many of us want to disconnect it that way. And it feels like a little bit too bold to do maybe what you're talking about, where it's like, we're going to start giving more because we need to earn more. But like the truth in our life, we've experienced this so many times. And like we just told you when we were paying off the mortgage, we multiple times, it was like that, where we had a financial goal we were trying to reach, trying to pay off a car or whatever else. And God's like, I want you to give more. It's like, that doesn't make sense. Why would you give more when you're you need more money to do this thing? Mm-hmm. And so there is something about the kingdom and the way that it works that is present. But at the same time, like there has to be a loose hand to where, again, you're not trying to manipulate God like he's your genie, and like, in which of course isn't going to work, but still, I think immature Christians can try to do that. And so there's something there about being loose-handed with it.
Even mature Christians can try to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
But there's something there about being loose-handed and allowing him to do it his way while operating within his principles that he established and set from the beginning.
Yeah.
I'm super convicted in our conversation because I'm the one who does the bills, and I'm super, I don't know, is that type A or whatever side of the brain that is, where I'm like, down to the penny. Okay, I need your, not your net, I need your gross. I need down to the penny how much we're supposed to give, because we're supposed to give 10%. And we have, and like I'm spreadsheets and things like that. And part of me is going, you know what, you just need to give, like just give what, when it comes up or at the end of the month or when you do it, just give what is on your heart to give. And if we walk down that road, just kind of like what you said, the worst thing that could happen is you're over generous, and maybe that's not the worst thing for you, but the worst thing is, oh my goodness, we don't have a whole lot of money at the end of the month. But then if we go back to the very beginning principle that you talked about, okay, but that's when you trust God.
Yeah.
Right. So worst case scenario, you're over giving or you're being super generous and you're trusting God. That doesn't sound like a very bad thing.
Well, and he rewards us for trying. You know what I mean? Like, how many times in school have my kids been like, I did so horrible. And I'm like, but did you try? Did you try your best? It's like, I don't care if you're not an expert at, drawing a portrait. I care if you tried. If you didn't try, then okay, let's have another conversation. But if you're trying your best, and I think that's how it is for us. It's like when we are trying to please him and trying to do our best, we're going to make mistakes, and that's fine.